Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. This show gets my deal fix where I get to talk about all sorts of deals. And today we're going to have a conversation about franchise roll-ups, something I've never even heard before. But we're bringing on an expert who also has a podcast interview or a podcast show. And we're going to interview him on this show and kind of get his story. So, Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah. All right. So let's just start with this. You've got a podcast show. Give your podcast show a shout out. Tell us about the show. Why'd you start it and where people could go to listen to it?
Yeah, so my last name is Beers, like the drink. So my podcast is called Business with Beers. We do not drink on when we record, but if someone wants to, they're welcome to. I talk about buying businesses, scaling businesses, kind of once you make money, where do you invest in it? I started about over a year ago. I got almost 100 episodes now in the books. And, it's a lot of fun. I mean, just like you get to connect with really interesting people and hear their story, and provides a really good excuse to like lock somebody down for 45 minutes and get to know them. And so I get the most value out of like the conversation, like me and you, the guest and the host, more than almost anything else. And so that's why I do it. That's why I love it. And I like getting on other podcasts to kind of expand my network as well and share the stories. So,
yeah, for me, I've done a bunch of different interviews, a bunch of different brands over the years. I love interviewing people, but when they're interviewing me, I get so nervous. Do you ever feel that way? Like when you've got the mic and you're in control of the conversation, to me, it's easier.
yeah. I don't know. I go both ways. Sometimes I'm okay with the interview, and sometimes it's depends on the who I'm talking to, and like, do I have to like pull information out of them, or does it flow? And I think that really kind of dictates how it goes.
Sure. So in starting the podcast show, 100 episodes in, super cool because most people won't get past one, right? And then if they do get cracked, past one, they stop at three, right? Like that's where the 90% fall off. Like what inspired you to keep going? Because 100's a big number. Like what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, it's just I think you build confidence just like anything you do in life. You start and I was super nervous for the first one and stuttering and like how's my voice going to sound and saying and this and too much. And I think people are really self-critical and no one really cares about that but you. And so I think once you can get over that, and you just keep going, and then people reach out. Like I get people reach out all the time, just like they reach out to you and tell you, how much of a change you've had on their life, whether it was an idea or a guest or something you inspired them to do. I have people message me all the time on LinkedIn and Twitter and subscribe to the newsletter. And like, I think one of the challenges of podcasts, it's like a one-way medium, right? People listen to us, but like it's hard for us to get feedback. And so I think, as when you start to kind of get that feedback and you realize like, hey, I'm like, people like this, like people are engaging, and it just builds confidence that you're making a difference and it's worth the time that I invest to do it. Plus, I mean, I have a good team around me too that produces the episodes. They create all the social media content. I mean, my primary job, my only job is to get on and talk for 45 minutes. And then I have a whole team that does everything else.
Yeah.
If I had to do it all myself, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So.
I started that way where everything, fell on my plate, and people don't realize, and I love your thoughts on this. People don't realize the amount of work it takes to put together a podcast show. You're interviewing the person, you're doing the research on them, you're pulling the notes and there's a lot of work to do that. And you've got a team. Talk to us about, now you're an expert in scale. Talk to us about what your business looks like now. First of all, you look like a really young dude, by the way, and it might be the camera or whatever, but you look like a really young dude who has accomplished some amazing things in your life. Kind of give us a snapshot of what you've accomplished to date.
Sure. So yeah, I'm almost 35, but I do look young. My wife is not happy about it, but well, I guess maybe it is, but she wants, anyway. Yeah. So we now have 30 automotive repair franchises in the Philadelphia, New Jersey market that we've kind of consolidated. 28 of them have been existing franchises that we kind of rolled under kind of our umbrella. 2 of them we opened, from scratch. And so, that is kind of what I'm here to talk about today. That's kind of the business we built. Legacy business goes back to the 70s. My dad started with 1, built it to about 6. I took over I joined in 2010 after college. Took me about 6 years to learn the business, get comfortable, network, make changes, have progress. And then, it's really in the last year, we went from 12 to 30, just through some big acquisitions. And, anyhow, it's a great business to be in. Franchising. There's a lot of opportunities for growth, which I know we're going to talk about. But anyway, that's the 30-second pitch.
Yeah, super cool. I'm looking through. And how many employees do you guys have now?
Close to 200.
200. Awesome, man. Nice work. When you were going to school, you went to UM, right?
Yep.
Down in
Yep.
South Florida. Awesome. Go UM. Uh, what were you going to school for, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, so I went to school. Actually, they had a program in entrepreneurship. So I had a business degree in entrepreneurship, which really was kind of like a nice mix of finance, management. There was some HR. Then we had some entrepreneurship specific classes where you wrote a business plan. You had to pitch it to a room like Shark Tank kind of style, and people criticized or uh, clapped for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that I really enjoyed that process. I've always loved business. I've worked ever since I could, whether it's in the stores or I worked at a music shop or I worked in college. I also did some software development, like database driven web apps, and I had a minor in computer science. So I had a job on South Beach working with this guy doing like iPhone apps. And so I was always like, into technology, into that stuff. And I never really wanted to like go the developer side. I wasn't that good at it. And I wanted to run a business. I wanted to own a business. And I decided, I looked at a number of different things, looked at finance, looked at like the Wall Street path. Decided that I didn't really want to go to New York and I didn't really want to maybe sit in front of a computer all day. And so decided to come home and just join the family business. And it was like, 2010 I graduated. So 08, 09, we're tough on them. And they were in it for 35 years or whatever and looking to retire and kind of get out. And so if I didn't come in to join, just would have been sold off and into different pieces, and that would have been it.
So when you got a job working family business, you're like exploring 2000, 2010, right? So we're just coming out of the a crackdown on the industry, right? Like the investment world, real estate, everything was kind of falling apart in 2008 ish. You stepped into a business that, automotive repair during times of recession, like repair shops actually do well because people will fix rather than buy a new one. When you stepped in, like, were you turning cranks and, wrenches and sweeping floors, or what did that look like when you got a job with dad?
Yeah. So, I mean, in the beginning, I mean, I'm not a mechanic at all. I think I changed oil once and maybe a few tires in my life, but that's okay. It's not my job, right? We have
Yeah.
people who are experts in that. Um, I learned the business. So I worked in the stores. I worked behind the counter. I like, had to learn everything. And so I was working the stores 5, 6 days a week, open to close, just trying to absorb as much as I can and, try to figure out, hey, where can we, where are the opportunities to improve here? And where can I like have the most impact?
What did you see, right? So coming from the UM and entrepreneurship where it's, the pitches, the deals, the excitement of the startup to now you're, behind a counter doing, a bunch of stuff, but you start to see before you went to college, you might have missed some things, but now you're behind the scenes and you're starting to see what opportunities did you see at dad's, the family business.
Yeah, so I mean the couple, is consist well there's number it's consistency of execution is like I think that is the biggest thing that separates businesses that succeed and businesses that don't. And so, the businesses that have the most success have the most consistent execution, and the ones that don't, like every single customer is different, every single location's different, every single like whatever market's different. And so that was, I think, one of the things I saw that was biggest. I'd work between the different stores and like, certain people do it this way, certain people do it that way. The sales approach, the inspection approach, the organization, the computer process of how they built tickets, like everything everybody did was just completely different. And so I think, honestly, we still struggle with it today. I don't think any business ever truly like solves it. But anyway, that was what I thought the biggest opportunity is find out what should the process be, like what is proven to be the best way to do it. And then how do we get as many of the people, as much of the often doing it consistent.
Yeah. So how did you do that, right? So this is what's needed for a company to franchise or scale, right? You need SOPs, systems, processes, operations. You need these things, but you stepping into that, like, how did you start to transform it? Like, what was your role in this gig?
Yeah, so it was just hands-on approach. I mean, I was in the stores every day and like, figured out how we were going to do it. And then we just, we start by retraining it. We start by defining the why, like what's the big reason of why we're doing this. And then we work on the how, which would be the training process. And so, but then it comes down to, but before you even talk about process, is do you have the right people? Like, do we have the right people who are all aligned with achieving the singular goal, whether that's growing the sales or hitting a gross profit target or, whatever it is. And so, we, of course, if you don't have the right people, they don't even care the why. They're just there like punching the clock in and out, and don't really want to change anything. And so, just throughout then and throughout now, it's all about how do we get the right people, as they like Jim Collins says or whatever. It's like the right people in the right seats, on the right bus going in the right direction here. And so it's like that to start. A, we have the right people, and then B, are we following the right process? And I think it's a combination of those two things of pruning the bush, getting rid of the people who are kind of the dead weight, bringing in people who really want to truly succeed, and then making sure we all follow a consistent process.
Yeah. So you mentioned Jim Collins' book. Great book. Right people, right bus, right seat. Right role in that. What was your, out of all the seats that you've held at the family business? Because now you guys have, 30 franchises, 200 employees. You guys are doing really good. Like as you look back on that bus being built over the years, like what has been the best seat for you that you found the most fulfillment and joy?
Well, I think it changes too. So like in the beginning, I was just learning the business. I knew nothing. My goal was just to learn. My goal was to network with other successful franchisees, bring in ideas from, outside organization, right? Because like what we were doing wasn't really working. So I had to like expand. So, those years, like my favorite role was the person to go out and figure out what all the best ideas were, right? And then come on, implement them. But then, as I kind of grew in my role, and then I became like the district manager or whatever, the general manager, where basically all the stores then were kind of people reported up to me, and I had a lot of success with that. Like I was able to move the needle. I was able to hire the right people. I was able to get them trained. We started having success, and then, I continued to evolve, and then I became, I replaced myself, right, as the district manager with somebody else. Now we have like 9 stores or whatever it is. And then that kind of continues to happen. I mean, even this past year, I replaced myself with a COO who then now all 5 we have district managers now report up to our singular COO instead of my brother and I now are 50-50. We own the company. And so but I've like enjoyed the process each way. And I think that's part of it. I think sometimes people get stuck in like a singular role and maybe they are the bottleneck. Like the owner is always the bottleneck to expand their business. And even now, like we're at 30 locations. And if I wanted to, like we could grow to 50 within 12 months, maybe 60 within 12 months. Like that choice is like, is me, like, and my brother, like but that decision to grow or not to grow, like we're the bottleneck both ways. And so I don't know. I mean, I enjoy my position now the most, but then I know like when I go to the next level and I hire maybe a CEO, like I'm probably gonna enjoy that the most. And so I think it's finding what you're really good at and trying to spend as much time on those tasks and as least amount of time on the things you're not good at and that are lower value tasks.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that changes though. That pyramid of what you're good at and what your highest value task is at the time changes.
Yeah. That is so hard to do for an early stage. We don't even have to call it early stage for a business owner to do, because I grew up, swinging hammers on the construction site, and like the advice I got, and this is how we were trained: keep it in the family, right? Which is a terrible piece of advice, right? Like keep it in the family. Don't trust anybody. You got to learn how to do it yourself. You need to know how to do every part of the gig, and you have to be really great at it to build and train and do whatever. And that limited us. Like I look back and I'm like, oh, that was such terrible way to go ahead and build this. And you're saying you need to focus on the strengths, right?
Yep. Yep. And for me, like, but my strengths back when we were smaller was like I was good at hiring people, I was good at training them, right? And then it became my strength needs to find other people who are good at hiring people. Like my strength needs to be identify their talent. Because then if I can do that, then I can duplicate it, 2 times, 4 times, 6 times, 8 times, right? And then it comes, how do I then lead and motivate those people? Like, how do I set clear goals? How do I motivate them? And then now it's also the deal side of it, right? I'm the one putting together most of the deals, creating the relationships with the other franchisees, trying to, educate people and then just expand my circle and network to attract higher and higher level talent to grow the business. So,
Mindset wise, which of the growth points that you have pushed through, what was the hardest one for you personally
yeah.
between
So
your
it would
years?
have been 2 years ago, I would probably say. And it was like, you know, a lot of my dad and uncle's success, who ran the company for years, and they did an awesome job, was that they were like what you said. It was like hands on, you do it yourself. You go to every location every week, and like that was our success. And so for years, I was kind of had this limiting belief that we could only grow within, like, let's say Philadelphia, and I had to like personally be involved in every store and every transaction because like that's how they did it, and that's how I should do it. And I think that was the limiting belief. And once it clicked, that said, wait a minute, instead of like me having to be the guy like in the stores that does it, like what if I'm just able to find somebody who can do it 80% as good as I would? And, you know, that's what allows you to scale. So that allowed us to say, hey, let's now go into New Jersey. Let's go into this other market an hour north of us. It's what's today's making us think about, hey, what is a new market, a plane right away look like? Because if we can do that, then we can go anywhere in the country, right? And so, but I had to break the idea, and I didn't even know I had the limiting belief. Was I just said, oh, the bigger you get, the harder it becomes. Like we want to be proud of all the stores, and if you get really big, it's hard to be consistent. It's hard to get the results. Like people are going to think negatively of us and our reputation because we're just going to be this big corporate entity that nobody cares about, or whatever the storyline. And so I think that's one story. Or the other story is, hey, we're really good at finding really good people, having clear, simple goals, executing this process, and we can have an excellent company that's scaled as big as we want. Both stories could be true. It's kind of your decision to choose which one you want to go down.
Yeah. So as you're building this, how do you know that you want to keep going? Because you said I could, if I wanted to, 50, 60 locations, 12 months, but I don't know if that's what we want. How do you know how far to go, how big to go? How
Yeah,
do you have?
so I view it as like in our business, it's kind of these stair steps of money we invest to grow, and then that can get us to a certain period point, and then it's this decision point. We have to invest again to continue to grow, or we're kind of at this maximum efficiency model. So for us, for example, like we have a district manager that can oversee roughly 7 locations that are all kind of within 15 to 20 minutes apart, and we want them in the stores every day, just like I would have been. And so for example, in Philadelphia, we have 14 stores and we have 2 guys. So like they're kind of at not capacity, but if we get to 20 locations just in Philly, we're going to need to add another person, right? And so that's like one of these stair steps. Same in New Jersey, we have 11 locations, 2 people. So like we have the capacity to probably take on another 3 or 4 stores. But then once again, we hit 14, 15. Now we talk 16, 17. We're like, oh, it's like maybe a little bit too much. But then we have to invest in a third person. But then now we can get to 21. But so that's kind of like how we view it. Is same for new markets. Like we could go into a new market. I need at least 5 stores to support the payroll of the district person that runs it. So I can't go into a new market with 2 stores. Like we wouldn't make any money. But I can start with 4 or 5, and then I can invest in a few more, convert whatever, get to 7, 8. And so those are kind of like what we think through. Like, is there an opportunity to get multiple stores? What's the like? How many can we get to? And then what problems do we want to solve? Like, do we want to solve problems that are potentially a plane right away, or do we want them all within an hour and a half to be able to get everybody into a meeting once a month here? Just it adds another level of complication. But once it get, then the flip side says, hey, but if we can solve that, then we can go anywhere. And so that limiting belief of the complication, if we have a solution, would be fine.
Personally, what drives you?
I mean, I think business is like a game, and I want to win. And so I'm just competitive, and I think it's fun. Like
Sure.
I enjoy the chase of it. Like I enjoy, I don't know, doing things that people think's not possible or people don't know of, or I don't know. I'm in a couple mastermind groups. I'm in one called GoBundance,
Oh yeah.
and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's kind of amazing that like you don't even know what is possible until you get in a room and you surround yourself with other guys who are like doing these crazy things, and it's like I don't know. You tweet it. I tweet this thing on Twitter, and then people, oh, that's not possible. You're just making this, up. And it's like, no, it is possible. And like, I think, I don't know. So for me, like, I see these other guys doing these cool things, and I'm like, hey, and if they can do it, why not me? And I can do these cool things. I can inspire other people, and then they can do cool things, and it just kind of like continues. So anyway, that's why I like doing it. And what else would I do? Like sit and read a book all day? Like I'd rather have fun, and I'm up for the challenge. So.
Yeah. Speaking of books, behind you there's a bookshelf with a bunch of books. If the office was burning down and you could only grab one of those books, which book would you grab?
That's a good question. I don't know, one book. I don't know. A couple of the ones that have been impactful for me. I really like What It Takes by Steve Schwarzman, founder of what's it, BlackRock or Blackstone, one of the two. He talks about it takes the same time, effort, and energy to do something small as it does to do something big. And I think that concept really stuck with me. I read that back around that time to say, hey, same for us, just like you were talking, like you do a small deal that's 25 grand. It's the same work as a $2.5 million deal. Like it's actually probably easier to do the $2.5 million deal. And we've, and that's kind of allowed us to do these bigger deals, to buy in 5 stores at a time, 7 stores at a time. We're looking at a potential deal now doing, a big one, including real estate and more stores and all this stuff. And it's like, but it's the same process. It's the same paperwork, negotiation, onboarding employees, setting up vendor accounts, whether it's that single store that like doesn't make any money or a whole new market that we can make a ton of money out of. And so that's a big one for me. And I think, a lot of times people operate out of fear, like fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of embarrassment, fear of like whatever. And I think the more someone can like ignore the fear and just go and do it, like the better success they're going to have. And that's why people don't do the quote big things, is because they're operating in a place of fear versus operating at a place of like, abundance or whatever, that this is possible. I can achieve this. I just need to surround myself with good people, set a plan, execute it, et cetera.
I grew up, like I said, swinging hammers. Like, here are some of the jobs that I had: swinging hammers, digging ditches, wrestling alligators, fighting fires, right? Like, these kind of things, they take, maybe some guts and a strong back. I also built a few, moving companies from inside the truck. So, mindset to me, and still is, one of the hardest things of training my mind to say what is possible, because there's so many times that I'll look at something and I go, man, that can't be done, or last time you tried this you went bankrupt, last time you did that, right? Like, there's a lot of those things. How do you mentioned my mastermind, so you can't use that one. How do you go about training your mindset to think bigger and do bigger?
Yeah. I mean, the first is to identify anytime you have a belief or something that comes up that's negative, is to sit back and like stop and think like, is that really true? Like, oh, we can't, I don't know, operate stores, whatever, 100 miles or a plane ride away, 1,000 miles away in Florida. But then is that really true? Like, why can't we? Well, because we're not there. Or what if we could hire really good people who could be there for them? Well, we can't see the people. Well, what if we do Zoom meetings, like in Loom videos, and
Mm-hmm.
leverage technology, to make it, more personable. And so, oh, I don't have enough money. Well, is there somebody who believes in me who would invest money because they've seen our track record, or are there banks that would loan us money based on our financials? Like, I don't know. I think a lot of times it's stop and reflecting and asking, is that really true? And I think, just like if I told you some belief, or you told me some belief you had, and I would like quiz you back on all the things that, have you tried this? Did you think of that? And I think if you can do that, you start to kind of break down well, maybe it's not this like hard stake in the ground thing anymore. Maybe it is, well, there's this option. We do have this option,
Mm-hmm.
and going from there. That's one of them. The other one is multiple options. A lot of times people think they only have 2 choices, or they only have one choice. But I think if you step back and you really look at it and say, hey, can I list out all my options? You can find there's multiple paths, and then one of those paths is how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So
Super cool. For me, I have to see it, touch it, feel it, taste it, have someone else, like for some reason, I had to learn the hard way, right? One of my mentors says, experience is education for fools who can't learn from someone else, right? And maybe that was me growing up. Now we run podcast shows and we try to learn from other people's successes and then ride coattails, right? Like I believe people pave the path, dive behind something that's going really well, and it's a lot cheaper. You love the franchise model, right? And you guys have bought and rolled up quite a few franchises. That's essentially something with a franchise, they already have systems, processes, and they might not be perfect, but they have movement, right? Um, why that versus just building one from scratch?
Sure. So the biggest reason is speed to scale. So if you want to like grow very quickly, in relative terms, I mean, for me, it took 12 years. But it's speed to scale. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, like here are the benefits, at least why. Number one, franchising is a closed network. So like it's like a country club. Like once you're in it, there is automatic like trust that is established between other franchisees. Like I can call up almost any person in the system or email them and have a conversation and talk to me about business and sales and employees and comp plans and margins and anything I want to ask them about. They are most likely going to tell me, and I'll tell the same for them. We'll share P&Ls. We'll find opportunities of where I'm doing good, where he's doing good to improve. And so I think that's a big one. There's this closed network. Part of that closed network also includes contact information and sales rankings for the entire system. In most brands, different franchisors are going to vary a little bit, but in my system, I can see in Philadelphia, New York, Maryland, any market I want to look at, who the top stores are, who the bottom stores are, who owns them, how many do they own, what's their email, what's their phone number. And so if we want to go and, the top guys I want to learn from, I can call them. The guys who are at the bottom, probably losing money based on, we all have similar cost structures. They might be interested in selling. Right.
Mm.
And so that's a big part of it. The other one, it's also so much easier to sell to an existing franchisee than it is someone outside of the network, because the franchisor has to approve them, like just like the country club or whatever. They got to get approved. They got to have a certain like liquidity. Some of them are really tough or impossible. Some of them are, they'll take anybody's money. But somebody wants to get out. Like it's so much easier to sell to someone who's already in the system, that's already franchised or approved, than like going through the process of selling it from the outside. Plus, like you list it, with you guys or whoever, like it's becomes somewhat public information. People start poking around. They want tax returns. They want this. They want that. I've never asked for a tax return in my life. I can look at the sales and nothing else really matters, because like our cost structure when we buy a location is going to be what our cost structure is, except for the rent and the property taxes. Like the pay plans, we're going to implement ours. We're going to implement our pricing program, our health insurance costs. So like, it's very easy for us to buy them because we can just look at a location, know what it's doing. I could give you a valuation within minutes. And like the due diligence is just confirm the lease and that the equipment's not total shit. And like, we're good to go. And so anyway, that's like so all that leads to the speed of doing acquisitions can be a lot easier. And so anyway, I'll stop there. I have a few more, but that's how I'm going to kick it off.
Yeah. So when you talk about roll ups, like what does a roll up look like for franchising?
I mean, it's one company going and buying out all the other operators, or as many as they can within the market. So for us, we started with 6. We bought 2, so that got us to 8. And then the next year I bought another, 1 or 2. The next year I opened up one and bought another one. Next year I bought like 7. The next year I bought like 5. The next year we did 4. And then these single transactions, can start to really add it up. And then as part of the kind of the roll up, like, it's our single point of office. We have our back office, we have our payroll, we have our things. And it's just, it streamlines operations. And a lot of things that we do then at scale, we can get better pricing from vendors, especially if we consolidate our purchases. Like we can get rebates back on like parts costs and stuff. And that I then have more leverage as 30 like total stores than 30 individual stores would have. So we can get better health insurance, better liability insurance, better cost on parts. We can recruit better people because there's like this upward movement that someone could start with a tech. Like someone he has started with as a technician with us and then became a store manager. And then eventually now has taken over our best location. And so like, and he even is a potential district manager candidate one day. Like, the bigger your world grows, the bigger, opportunities are created for everybody who lives within your world. And so for us, even if we go to 50 locations or 100, like that is going to create more opportunities for people to rise as we continue to grow. And so I think, that's why you would roll up anything. But with franchising, it's just easier.
Yeah. When you're with some friends or whatever, and a question about a car comes up, do people assume that you know how to turn wrenches and like they're like, "Oh yeah, you own an automotive shop. You know how to fix this problem. Could you come over and
Uh,
fix grandma's car?"
yeah, no, nobody asked me that. They know I'm not. I could tell you what's wrong with it. Like I get it technically, but and I could probably do some of it. I'm like not the worst person in the world with when it comes to using a tool, but no, I'm not. I'm not. That's not my role.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw for business owners is once they get out of a role, the verifying it, right? So they trust but verify, but like releasing that and not going back in when there's an emergency, or going back in when there's an issue, or when they're maybe not hitting 80%. Like, how have you protected yourself from going back and diving into roles?
Yeah, it's hard. People say it's easy. It's not. Um, I think the first thing you do is try to hire really good people, and then bite your tongue. Like, for example, my COO, he's like a rock star for us. He just joined. Important conversations, guys potentially quitting, like over, a good employee, over some things. And I'm actually in this room, and I can like they're in that room, and I can hear them talking. And so like as they're, because it's kind of this interesting, I'm like the fly on the wall. And as he's going through it, like I want to like text him and tell him like, oh, try this. But like, even more, I didn't. And then he says it. Like he says the thing I wanted him to say. Like he had his like, stake in the ground on where we weren't going to move from. And he was 100% right. And so like, I think that's part of it too, is just sometimes you just bite your tongue, you let them do their thing, and then later go back and coach them on it. And in this game, the coach was, "Hey man, you did a great job. I think you made every decision was the right one." And um, I think that gives them direction on which ways to go, because they need feedback too. Like everybody wants to do a good job. Like a lot of times it's just they just don't know, or maybe they make a bad decision. But a lot of times it's they just need to have more clarity.
Behind you is a guitar. Is that yours? Do you play?
Yeah, originally I actually, so funny. I want to go to University of Miami because I was really into music. I knew I never could make money as a musician, so then I wanted to get into the music business side of it, like publishing, recording, that kind of thing. And Miami had a music business program that was part of like somewhat integrated with the business school, and so that was my original like why University of Miami. That's why I want to go down there. Then if you've ever been, it's a gorgeous campus, like a resort. And so then I ended up switching, not doing the music thing and doing computer science instead. But I'm still a
What's your
big fan.
favorite song to play on that guitar?
Well, now I'm into like I used to be really good because I used to play all the time. Now then once you like have kids and stuff, you don't seem to play as much. So now I'm into country music. So anything like Zach Brown Band or like Brothers Osborne, that kind of stuff.
Copy that. So during your podcast interviewing career, I looked through some of the guests, Steve Noodleberg and Dave Seymour, two guys that I know, and uh, they they both bring so much energy to the interviews. As you're doing this and you're looking for future guests, right? So I want my audience, if they'd be a good fit for your show, like what do you look for in a perfect guest?
Yeah, I mean, energy is a big one. Somebody who sounds like they're asleep at the microphone is
It's
really
hard.
hard. And like they talk about, the microphone takes like your energy down a level, so you got to amp it up. And even something I continue to work on. So yeah, they're bringing energy. I mean, honestly, like they have an interesting take on something. I think people want to hear, kind of a new spin on something, not just kind of the same old story. And then they face some level of like adversity and they overcome it. I think are all pretty interesting topics, whether it's growing a business or like, some sort of investment strategy. Even with Dave Seymour, I've invested in his deals, even after being a guest on my podcast. I mean, that's how I got to know him. And he's a great dude.
Yeah, that dude has some energy, man. We had some fun with him. We went on a few trips together, and dude, it's hilarious. So shout out to Dave, super awesome. Um, so where could people go to subscribe, give you a 5-star freaking rating for your show? What's the name of it one more time?
Business with beers.
Business with Beers. Okay, cool. So 35 years old ish, I think, right?
Yep.
35.
Yep.
uh, you're not going to sit around playing guitar. You're not going to sit around reading books. You're in it because you love the game of it, and you love the challenge, right? You're competitive and you love the game. You love the challenge. You and I head forward in the future. Let's just say 35 years, right? And we're sitting on a rocking porch, you know, rocking chair on the front porch or whatever. And we're talking about looking back, and we go, "We did it." Right? We did it, man. Look at what we did. Look at what we accomplished. What would the thing that you looking back 35 years from now would make you the most proud, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, it all comes back to why. I mean, the big reason why you do it, which is your family, and like wanting to spend as much time with your family as possible. Like, I think that's all why we're looking to build a business. And even for me, it's kind of create the life you want to live, and then create a business that then supports that lifestyle. And I think all too often people go the other way. They find this business and then they make their life around the business. And so for me, like I have two, beautiful wife. We've been together since high school. I have two girls that are 6 and 1.5 ish. And, so I think for me, it's that I was there for every important moment in their life. I take my daughter to school every day, and just being able to spend time with them and not feeling like I missed anything. And so that's the whole point. Like that would be the reason I would not want to expand, is like, if it took the company to a level that, like, whatever, I had to personally get involved. I had to work crazy hours. I had to like be on the road all the time, for what, like, to miss them. That would not be worth it to me. And so I think that's the key.
Yeah. So for a guy who has, 30 different automotive shops, you've seen a lot of cars come in and go out. So you probably see some patterns of good and bad. I'm not going to ask you the bad, but if you could have any car made in the history of mankind as your personal car, for like your dream car, what is that?
I mean, let's see. Depend. I mean, my wife drives a Subaru Forester. I think they're great family cars. My wife has one. My brother's wife have one. My aunt and uncle have one. So anyway, I think that if you have a family all-wheel drive, like drive like a car, even though it's like a mini SUV, they're great. I mean, I would love to drive a Porsche 911, if turbo, but yeah. So that's what I would pick.
What year? And where would you put the car seats?
Yeah. So no car seats. So we need another vehicle. That would be for the Subaru.
Yeah.
A new one.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
never
Got it.
driven one, but they look like fun.
Yeah, super cool. During this interview, there's probably some questions that I should ask you, other than like where could people go and connect to you. But there's probably a question that fundamentally I just missed the mark. What question should I have asked you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one is how we're financing all these things, is the big one, and the answer is owner financing. Like, we've, of the 30 locations, 24 of them have been purchased with owner financing, and where basically the seller of the business becomes the bank. We make a down payment to them, and we make monthly payments to them, and for principal and interest. And so I've only gone to a bank once for an acquisition loan. That was the first one in 2016. We've never taken outside money. Uh, it's all been bootstrapped, taking the money we make on the first business to buy the next one, taking that one to buy the next one, and so on. And that's how you can get compound growth within a few short years. Because instead of going out and buying that Porsche, which I could if I wanted, or a bigger house or all this stuff, we take the money and we use that as down payments to continue to buy the next one, and then pay off the debt with then the cash flow we get from it. And so um, that would be the key, I think, is in franchising. It's also a lot easier to get owner financing because of that trust, because I'm known, because I'm on all the committees, right? Like, because we do well in the rankings, like all those things create this establishment of trust, which is like completely necessary to get a deal. Like, I'm sure it's probably extremely hard to sell a business with owner financing once it reaches a broker. It's very easy to get it when you're the only person talking to them and you just tell them this is how we do it, and they say okay. So
Yeah. It's interesting because so when you guys are going out to buy, if you say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is our success patterns, right? This is how we do it. They get to see a system and a process, right? They get to see, would I fit within this model? Rather than someone coming and they're going through all this work and they go, oh, by the way, would you own or finance and this and that? And it just adds different complexity to the deal. Whereas yours, it's pretty straightforward. When you guys are on the buy path, looking at these deals, do you guys stay within brand, like within different things, or do you guys venture outside of the franchise brand and roll them into the one that you have?
Yeah, so we've done both. I mean, I've only opened two from scratch. The rest 28 have been existing locations, which already have customers. They already have a phone number. They already have cash flow. Like that's priority. If there's an existing store in the market, like so much of a better investment. But for example, Pep Boys had one that was they were ending a lease on a building that we found out about, and we swooped in there. We were able to buy the assets from Pep Boys for 35 grand. So the lifts, the tire equipment, the like,
Wow.
everything in the furnitures and fixtures, et cetera, $35,000. I think we put 20 maybe more into it with some renovations and just reconfigurations. And so we were into this thing for like 55 or 60 grand or something. Maybe it was a little bit more, but I mean, that was like the lowest cost acquisition I've ever done. And then we went to the landlord and got a direct lease at a pretty good rate. Because they were about to lose a major tenant, with the Pep Boys, and we come in and we sign a good lease with them. And that one I just found out through interviewing. I happened to interview a technician, and I asked him why he was leaving. He said, "Well, they're shutting the building down." And so then I said, "All right, well, can I have your boss's number?" And then I got to that guy. I said, "Can I have your boss's number?" And I get to the some of the decision makers. And so yeah, we'll look at independents or other major brands. For us, it's just it has to fit our model. Like it's a major retail area. It's got to be at least 4,000 square foot. It has to be not too close to an existing store, and it just becomes harder and harder to find the buildings that fit the model. At least in the markets we're currently in.
Yeah, super cool, man. As you're going through this model of franchising, you become well known in the thing. If you had to look at, for people, let's just say for the guy listening in, guy or gal, who is, a W-2 employee, and they're looking at starting their own business and they want to go franchising, or the guy who just sold his business and built it from scratch, sold it, and he's like, never want to do the startup stage ever again in my life, right? And they're looking at franchising as an option, right?
Yep.
What are some of the, buy it versus build it? What are some of the things that you've seen as why franchising is a good option for those kind of people?
Yeah, great question. I get this a lot. I have a strong opinion on it, which is to not build anything, which is to buy everything, at least to buy the first five of them, and then you could look to build one. Like even us, like that are the two we've done. Like was number 12 and number 24. Like and so because sometimes a lot of times you build and you got to build from zero. Like it takes sometimes a lot longer than the franchisor is going to tell you. They may say within 12 months, but it could take 24 months. It could take 36 months. Like you don't actually know. And so while it's quote building and you're quote like you're growing your sales, you're probably going to be losing money. And so like it's much easier to sustain the cash drain when you've got like six other locations or whatever the territories, however the metrics are, that are then supporting that and then funding that. So you're not like coming out of pocket and like draining your personal savings. So I'd rather like buy, build it up. You got good cash flow. You have some cash flow now that you can invest in this new one, and you can then, sustain 12 months before it's profitable or whatever it is. And so that's my first answer. The second thing is what type of franchise to look at. It's my opinion that you should be looking at legacy brands, brands that have been around for 25 years, because legacy brands have legacy owners, and with the baby boomers, there's like whatever 10,000 a day retiring. A lot of them are business owners, and a lot of them, if they wanted to exit already, they would have. And so if they still own it, it's because they have no exit plan. They don't have a kid. They want to give it away to. They don't really want to like list it because of the fear of the employees finding out and quitting, and now they're really screwed. And so a lot of them just like hold on to it, right? And then they get more and more like negative about the business because they don't want to be in it. And so you swoop in, they see themselves in you. You become the easy button, right? You then breathe like new life, new energy into the business, and you get automatic increases. And so, the brand new crumble cookie or like whatever the hot franchise is not going to have legacy owners. And so, you can make a lot of money with all the new with some of the new concepts, but there's a risk reward ratio, right? Versus you go in, you find a legacy brand, guys who want to retire, and then it's a safer bet, at least in my opinion. And so that's what I would look for is a legacy, 25 plus years.
Super cool. Where can people go to connect with you and do a deal with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I said I have a big LinkedIn following, Brian Beers. I'm also on Twitter at Brian Beers. Those would be the two main places where I'm at. And yeah, happy to chat with people if anybody's interested in learning about franchising. I've got a lot of content on it and working on kind of just building the education platform to teach people. A lot of people don't think of franchising when they think of building wealth. But in fact, it for the right people, it can be an excellent path for people that want to scale pretty quickly.
Super cool. What we'll do is we'll put your contact information in the show notes. So fellow deal makers, the mission, purpose, everything we do on this show is to connect deals and deal makers. So if you hear a guest that interests you, connect with them. Connect with them, say, hey, heard you on the show and I want to do a deal with you. If you have a deal that you'd like to talk about here on the show, head over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form. Maybe we'll get you on the show next. Till then, we'll talk to you all on the next episode. Thank you, Brian.